All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 6th Township Committee meeting. We will now salute the American flag behind Mr. DeLuca. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to have a moment of silence for retired Fire Captain George L. Milner, who served with honor with the Maplewood Fire Department for 25 years. So we could just take a moment to remember Fire Captain George Milner for his service to our community. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December of 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk. Ms. Adams, okay, there we go. I was going to call you because they were on mute.
Adams?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here,
Mayor McGee?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231 Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies to be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct this business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee. Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, except as otherwise described by law, does limit the public to the observations, the actions, discussion of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
so moved.
Second.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes,
Mayor McGee?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and good evening, everyone. Our apologies for being a little bit late this evening. We were enclosed dealing with some pressing issues. I'll quickly run through the agenda for tonight so that we're cognizant of what we'll be covering. We have 3 proclamations on the agenda this evening. One regarding Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the second Domestic Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month, and finally LGBTQ History Month. We'll then move into our first public comment. This is for agenda items only, limited to 3 minutes. And then after we finish with our first public comment, then we will have our monthly Board of Health meeting. From there, we have only one ordinance, and it's on introduction. It's regarding the revision of our ADU ordinance, which we had voted down a couple months ago. After that, we will have reports from our departments, and this meeting, we don't have any, so that will go pretty quick. Then we'll go into our administrative reports. We'll hear from our Township Administrator, Ms. Riveros, from our Township Clerk, Ms. Fritzen, and from our Township Attorney, Mr. Desiderio. From that, we will hear our reports from elected officials, Mr. Limbrick, Ms. Adams, Mr. Dathis, and Mr. DeLuca and myself. And then we'll move on to our discussion items. We have a total of 3 discussion items this evening. We'll be discussing the chicken ordinance, also a recommendation from the Finance Committee in regards to a credit for jitney passes that were purchased this year. And finally, from the Office of Emergency Management regarding our CARES funding. At that point, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have a total of 50, more than that this time. We have a total of 19 items on the consent agenda regarding everything from authorization of payments to approval of procurement cards, as well as awarding of contracts. At that point, we'll move into our second and final public comment, which is on any agenda item only, and then we will adjourn. So that is our agenda for this evening. We'll quickly move forward and now turn the floor over to Ms. Adams, who will read our first proclamation. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to preface this by saying, as the only woman on the Township Committee, I get to read proclamations like this, and with gratitude. As a breast cancer survivor, I can't emphasize enough the importance for women to, especially women. 1% of breast cancer cases in the country are men. So it is something men should be aware of as well, but obviously it's something that affects women more than men. So I know we're in COVID, and we're all probably letting certain regular visits that we might otherwise do at regular testing and screenings and the like to kind of be pushed aside. But it's vitally important, as somebody who had a pretty drastic surgery for the earliness of my diagnosis. It undoubtedly saved my life and those of many other people. So I just want the public to tell the women in your life, especially men are less likely to get screened for this, but just keep it in mind, and let's not let our regular screenings for any kinds of diseases or cancers get waylaid by the pandemic we're in. It's still vitally important to catch it early. So with that, I will say that Breast Cancer Awareness Month is October of 2020, whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, an annual campaign that remains dedicated to increasing public knowledge about the early detection of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And whereas breast cancer will affect 1 in 8 women in the United States who will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And whereas breast cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer in women and is the second leading cause of cancer death in women. And whereas each year, an estimated 268,000 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And although breast cancer in men is rare, an estimated 2,600 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer each year, and 400 will die. Whereas a woman's risk of breast cancer nearly doubles if she has a first-degree relative, mother, sister, or daughter who has been diagnosed with breast cancer. And whereas in 2020, an estimated 8,260 new cases of breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in the state of New Jersey alone. And whereas as of January 2020, there were more than 3.8 million women with a history of breast cancer in the United States. This includes women being treated and women who have finished treatment. Whereas death rates from breast cancer have been declining, and these changes are thought to be the results of treatment advances, early detection through screening, and increased awareness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Nancy Adams, Township Committee woman on the Township of Maplewood, on behalf of Mayor Frank McGehee and the rest of the Township Committee, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And accordingly, I encourage all of our citizens to be proactive in getting tested regularly for breast cancer and join with our communities in participation of any Breast Cancer Month activities that may occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And I just have to say that when my aunt went to get tested, I think it was 20 years ago, she said to my mom, "Come on, Diane, you come get tested too." And they went to get tested. It was Christmas week of 1997. They went to get tested. And it was because my aunt told my mom to go get tested that she found out that she had breast cancer. And after 2 bouts with it, it took her life 10 years later. So I agree with Ms. Adams, and I 100% say, to everyone, get tested. It's serious. So thank you, Ms. Adams.
It's serious, Mayor, and also highly treatable when caught early. And that's really important for people to remember. yeah, my mother died from breast cancer as well, but she never got tested. She was, that Italian generation of Depression era that did not like doctors. So, but anyway, thank you.
Mr. Limbrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will now be reading the proclamation for Domestic and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. Whereas October is Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, a time to recognize, highlight, and support the important work done by survivors, victim service providers, anti-violence programs, coalitions, and other community organizations in raising awareness about and working toward the elimination of intimate partner violence. And whereas intimate partner violence affects millions every year, in just one day across the US, over 75,000 victims. Whereas the victims of intimate partner violence are both women and men, affecting a wide range of individuals and often contributing factors such as racism, homophobia, transphobia, discrimination based on economic status, immigration status, or nationality, disability, or age, making finding safety for some victims very difficult. Whereas on any given day across the US, more than 9,000 requests for intimate partner violence support services, including emergency shelter, housing, transportation, child care, and legal representation cannot be provided due to the serious deficiency in available resources to meet victims' needs, with the need for safe houses being rated as survivors' most urgent need. And whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are victims of severe physical violence in their lifetime, and whereas 1 in 3 adolescents in the United States report being a victim of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse from a dating or intimate partner. Whereas preventing intimate partner violence includes recognizing that non-physical actions such as emotional abuse, social isolation, stalking, and financial dependence lead to or perpetuate intimate partner victimization. And whereas intimate partner violence is preventable and we collectively take a stand against violence in our community and commit ourselves to supporting and participating in efforts, activities, and programs that shed a light on intimate partner violence, meet the needs of survivors, and promote healthy relationships and personal wellness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Frank McGehee, Mayor of Maplewood Township, and all of the Maplewood's governing body, Township Committee, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Domestic and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and ask all residents of Maplewood to join us in speaking out against violence and actively participating in activities and programs sponsored by organizations that work toward the elimination of violence and standing with survivors everywhere. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very grateful to be reading our proclamation this evening in honor of October being LGBTQ History Month. As the only LGBTQ member of the governing body and Maplewood Township's first openly LGBTQ elected council person, I take this very seriously in promoting greater visibility throughout the state and raising awareness of the issues that remain in the LGBTQ community. This is an opportunity for us to celebrate our struggle, our history, and to raise awareness of where we still have yet to go in order to realize equal citizenship in the United States of America. I wasn't going to read the proclamation in its entirety, but I actually am going to do so, especially in light of the other day's menacing threats, menacing reports that we got from the Supreme Court of the United States of America, threatening marriage equality that we fought so hard for. I got my start in activism in the marriage equality and the conversion therapy as a conversion therapy survivor battle. I'm just absolutely disgusted and concerned about where we are going in this country. And that really, really underscores what's at stake in this upcoming election and why every single one of us should not take our vote for granted. Accordingly, the proclamation states that October is Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer History Month across the United States, that LGBTQ History Month was created in 1994 by a high school history teacher in Missouri, his name being Rodney Wilson. who believed a month should be dedicated to the celebration and teaching of gay and lesbian history. Whereas October holds historical significance because in October 1979, the first LGBTQ National March on Washington occurred, marking the 10th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. Also in October 1998, the first National Coming Out Day was celebrated. And every year on October 11th, National Coming Out Day and LGBTQ awareness is observed. And whereas LGBTQ History Month celebrates this community's struggles against discrimination and the history of heroism of those who fought for civil rights, and whereas LGBTQ individuals have made and continue to make lasting contributions to strengthen the fabric of our society in America, and whereas the Township of Maplewood is committed to inclusion and it recognized the need for full legal and social equality of LGBTQ residents, and whereas the Township of Maplewood appreciates and recognizes the importance of LGBTQ History Month as an effective means of educating and calling to action its residents to work together to promote equal protection of all township residents and staff, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity. And whereas the township is proud to be an inclusive town for everyone, regardless of gender, race, religion, nationality, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Now, therefore, be it resolved this October 2020 that I, Dean Daffis, Deputy Mayor of Maplewood Township, on behalf of our mayor, Frank McGehee, and along with our colleagues of Maplewood's governing body, the Maplewood Township Committee, we do hereby proclaim October 2020 LGBTQ History Month, and we ask all residents of Maplewood in joining us in recognizing and celebrating the rich history of the LGBTQ community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. We're now going to move forward to agenda item number 8, which is our public comment. I want to first recognize Ms. Burnett from our Essex County office, who's joined us this evening. She is our liaison and is a critical member of Essex County, and is also a great advocate for us, all things related to the county. So Ms. Burnett, I yield the floor to you.
I apologize for being late. I happen to be helping some other constituents in the county. My name is Keisha P. Burnett. I am the director of the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits. I'm also Essex County Morgue Keeper. My number is 862-327-1651. My email address is kburnett, BURNETT, at D as in David, F as in Frank, A as in B, A as in Apple, B as in boy, .EssexCountyNJ.org. I really don't have a report right now, but I am trying to help someone that is in need, that is homeless right now. If you need me, contact me. I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm always here from Maplewood Township.
Thank you, Ms. Burnett. And we appreciate your dedication to our township.
Thank you.
We will now open up the floor for 3 minutes only for anyone who'd like to speak on any agenda item. I'll let Glenn let us know if there's anyone who'd like to speak.
Sure. If there's any folks in the audience that would like to comment on agenda items, only just use the raise hand function and let me know. Once or twice, seeing no one, all you, Mayor.
Thank you, Glenn. We will now move on to our Board of Health meeting. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I will read the opening statement as soon as I pull it up here, trying to go completely paperless this evening. Okay, pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of Public Laws of New Jersey, 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the township clerk. Can we get a roll call?
Ms. Adams? Ms. Adams?
Here.
Mr. DeLuca?
I'm here.
Mr. Lembrick?
Here.
Mayor McGee?
Here.
Mr. Daffis?
Here. Thank you, Ms. Whitson.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desiring the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be it resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health and Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit except to set forth in a formal agenda active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
I was so good on the moving part. Here. I mean, yes, you know.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I move the approval of our minutes from our September 1st Board of Health meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes, and thank you again, Ms. Adams. At this point, I would like to invite our health officer, Candace Davenport, to present us and the community with her report. Candace, take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for acknowledging all of those health issues in the proclamations in the past proclamations in the past months. Those are all really important ones. And I want to emphasize that going forward with routine screening and going to see your doctor is super important now more than ever. So my update is that the flu vaccine has been ordered, but unfortunately it's been back ordered. So we have a delay of the flu vaccine coming to Maplewood for late October, early November timeframe. In terms of environmental health updates, we inspected Raven's Quill Tattoo on Springfield Avenue this afternoon. And as soon as they get their final inspection, they'll be ready to rock and roll. So that ribbon cutting will be coming up soon. And they'll be in touch with you, Mayor, on that. Rodent control, our numbers have gone down significantly. We only have 25 initial complaints this September. So with the weather getting better, getting colder, they're starting to dissipate, so that's great. In terms of Municipal Alliance, which for those of you who may not know is our substance use and prevention program, where we have a whole bunch of community members a part of, including South Orange as our partner. Our budget, unfortunately, was significantly reduced due to COVID funding from the county and the state, but we were acknowledged by the Essex Passaic Wellness Coalition on our township vaping ordinance. So kudos to everyone on that. Also, thank you to Town and Country Pharmacy. They gave out 75 naloxone kits last week. So for acknowledgement of opioid addiction and prevention. So thank you for that. Moving on to our coronavirus pandemic and nursing update. I still want to say that we are still in this fight. I know that we are moving into the fall and it's been a long, long year, but we are still unfortunately in this with our cases staying pretty much steady in Maplewood at 373. That's an increase of 16 new cases since September. However, in New Jersey, the rate of transmission is 1.27, which if you recall from my September presentation was 0.92. And our positivity rate in New Jersey has gone up to 2.62%. So that is up from the 1% that we would like to be in. Salerno Medical mobile testing will be here at the Maplewood Community Pool until October 30th. from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, except this Monday upcoming, which is a Columbus Day holiday. So they will not be there on Monday, but they will be there the rest of the week. If you have tested there and you need your results, please call 973 COVID-19. So that's 973 and then COVID 19 to get your test results. They will email your results to you as long as you are able to provide your full name and date of birth. As for holidays, as we look toward October and our first fun holiday of Halloween, the governor has put in some recommendations for what we should do as a state for trick-or-treating. I do want to emphasize that the CDC has a webpage specifically providing guidances for lower risk, moderate risk, and high risk activities for all holidays, including Halloween, Thanksgiving, and religious holidays in December. So we all want to gather with our families, but maybe we want to assess our risk for what we're comfortable with in terms of exposure in large gatherings. So I would recommend the CDC holiday website for that. And just to note that door-to-door trick-or-treating, as per the CDC, is considered in the high-risk category. So I will leave it to your discretion as a township as to what you'd like to do in setting what we will do, what township residents will do for the 31st. They're also in the news, you might have seen that we will be getting temporary rapid COVID-19 testing for 12 weeks. The date of that delivery is unsure, but that will be funneled directly to targeted audiences like healthcare providers, first responders, long-term care facilities, places that really need to see if there's an outbreak and assess it very quickly. Colleges, for example, with dormitories, those would be the places that it will be targeted for. Also, in terms of contact tracing, there is a new app that I would encourage all of you to download onto your phone, which is called COVID Alert NJ. COVID Alert NJ allows you to be notified through your computer, through your phone, if you have been in contact or close contact with someone who's a positive coronavirus case. We've done this, this has been seen in other countries to work really well, and it gives you a notification to quarantine if needed. So that's COVID Alert NJ. Lastly, we have, or close to last, we have a social media initiative in town called #NewNormalMaplewood. It's encouraging to have people in our township participate and see others in town doing things like we would normally do, but wearing face coverings. Oh, there's Mayor McGeehee modeling it right there. Thank you. So one of the things I want to say on that note is to our families and our and children and young adults out there, please continue to wear your face covering. It is super important. And unfortunately, with our cases nationwide and throughout New Jersey, we are seeing the cases mainly among 30 to 49-year-olds, as well as the young adult population considered 18 to 29. So please, 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 because you're out and about and enjoying all the reopenings, please continue to wear your face coverings and stay 6 feet apart. Moving on to, yes.
Candace, can you skip over the next topic because it's going to elicit conversation?
Yes.
And finish off that section, and then we'll go back to masking in the village.
You got it. Okay. You may have also heard that there's COVID-19 vaccine that is being planned for a rollout. We have been in touch with the state health department. Just the big takeaways from that is that they are working on a vaccine, but the vaccine for the general public will not be available probably until the later part of next year. So just want to set expectations for people that the vaccine is being worked on, but the progression of it will not be ready for the general public in its masses production until mid or late next year. Also, if you have been to our township webpage, on the upper left corner, you'll see a COVID-19 portal. If you haven't visited that recently, you will find new updated guidance from the state health department that we've uploaded there for your convenience, as well as pod guidance for those who are looking to participate in pods during the school session or control the social sphere of your children or family during this time. So that is the end of my presentation, but there is that one part, which is through our office, we have heard from multiple residents that they are concerned about the lack of mask compliance in the village, in particular during the weekends and in the evenings. So I'd like to bring that concern of the residents to your attention and ask if you would consider mandatory mask wearing in the village and how that would, how we can increase compliance with that.
Anyone want to jump in here? I'll give my thoughts first. So this is something, as Candace can attest to, and as the mayor can attest to, this is something that the three of us went back and forth a lot about probably a couple of months ago, right, Candace? I was receiving reports at the time from people who were concerned that masking in the village, certainly as outdoor dining took off more, certainly as the pedestrian mall became more popular, and as we added music and other, festive ideas to keep people outside and to get them outside, we received a lot of complaints from people, and people recommended this as an idea. I certainly was required to mask in a business district in 2 different locations outside of Maplewood when I took short breaks during the summer. And so I know that it's possible to do. I do think there's a couple of questions here with any such proposal. The first is whether or not we are preempted. And I know we have Mr. Desiderio, our township attorney, with us. I don't think we are preempted. I think we can go more restrictive, but Mr. Desiderio can certainly give us some information, his opinion about that. And I think obviously the second piece to this is if we were to entertain such a thing, enforcement is key, because without enforcement, why bother, right? So we'd really have to figure out. Also, another question for Mr. Desiderio is ordinance over resolution. I would suspect that an ordinance is the most appropriate way to go about doing something like this, if we are to do something like this. And an ordinance was also give us the power to institute a fine. So Mr. Desiderio, did you want to weigh in a little bit here?
Sure. Let me do the second part first. In terms of the ordinance or the resolution, obviously you're right, the ordinance has got more teeth. But given if in fact this is more of an emergent situation, the resolution is the quicker way to get this done in terms of it, and maybe it's do both type of situation. Do the resolution and then follow it up with the ordinance. In terms of the issue of preemption, my gut reaction is you're not preempted, but I'd have to probably go back through all of the various orders that came down to make a determination if there was anything specific, with regard to this. But my guess is no, that you're not preempted.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. Who wants to go first?
So I as you were talking, I looked up Hoboken because I remember they did something on July 8th, they did a mandatory mask in Hoboken. They had talked about doing a $250 fine, but I think they did not do that. So I think we have one example of it not being preemptive, and that's in Hoboken. I guess the question I would have is, why would we not make it town-wide?
That's a good question. You mean like
I'm supportive of it, but why would we not make it town-wide? If we think it's important whenever there's a crowd, sometimes there's crowds at other places.
Anyone else?
So would this be mandatory just when social distancing is not possible? Or would this, because I can see, I certainly think that should be the rule everywhere. I think that, to Mr. DeLuca's point, whether it be, certain parts of the village or other parts that are likely to be crowded, or, I could see doing it there, but I guess I don't, I think there's a lot of places in town where social distancing is possible. And if people are sort of walking up and down their own streets, as a lot of people do to exercise, I think to require masks for people just out walking, is probably further than I'd want to go. And I'm not sure that's necessary. So it's maybe some clarification on what's proposed.
Mr. Lundberg, I can clarify. Currently, the rule is through the governor's orders that masking is required and strongly recommended where social distancing isn't possible. So that is the current rule. This would go one step further and designate certain areas, or as Mr. DeLuca suggested, townwide, where masking would be required at all times if you were in those areas. So if we were to say the village and or add all of our parks and recreational areas, it would apply all the time when people were in the parks and in the village.
Yeah, I think I could get behind that. I don't have a problem with that. I think I just, if we were to make it sort of anywhere within the four corners of Maplewood, that it was mandatory. I think that, then I'd think maybe that was overstepping, but, then I guess the question becomes, how do we identify the areas? And I think you've already started us off, Deputy Mayor, by mentioning the village and the parks and recreation areas. And, maybe we come up with a few others, and we can do this by whether by resolution or ordinance. I think as long as we have a criteria, that clearly spells out where it's required, as opposed to just a general requirement that everyone has to wear a mask when they're outside all the time, I could probably support that.
Thank you, Mr. Lundberg. Ms. Adams, your thoughts?
She's having computer problems.
Sorry, Mr. DeLuca, did you want to add to your previous comments?
No, Ms. Adams having computer problems. She said that she didn't think it should be townwide. She thought it should be in the village because it's harder to social distance in the village.
Yes, she had problems.
Okay, Mayor?
Yeah, I'm on board with you and Mr. DeLuca and Mr. Lindbergh. My only question is, which comes up even with our current kind of mandate, is how we enforcement, right? That's the one I'm concerned with. I mean, all of us get an email almost every day where they've seen someone in various situations, not wearing a mask. We've asked them to wear a mask, and at this point, it's hard. We're not everywhere, so we try to, we say, listen, you're empowered as a fellow resident, as a taxpayer, to say something, to see something, say something, and by the time you tell us, that person or people are long gone, and then we send people to the situation, and they're addressing those who may or may not have been in violation of or against what we discussed. So I'm on board. I just want us to try to think about enforcement, because it's such a hot topic nationwide. But as we've seen on television, no matter where you are, or on social media, or even on the radio, when you don't wear a mask and you're together, COVID spreads.
That's right, Mayor. So we have an agreement about the concept, the idea. So I guess the next step is to figure out what enforcement looks like. We do know that all of these COVID-related public health directives and executive orders, enforcement lies exclusively with the police department. And we also know that in other towns near us, Newark is a good example, where such a policy has been taken, a more restrictive, mandatory outdoor masking. The police department have the exclusive authority to enforce that mandate and to do so by issuing fines. So now I know that there's a balancing act here. Obviously, we don't want over policing. We want whatever enforcement occurs to be equitable everywhere in town. So only certain people are not the ones who are getting ticketed. So we sort of have to balance that out. But I do think it's also important and not something to disregard, because as Ms. Davenport described, we are above a 1 positivity rate again, which means that for every person infected, another person and almost another other person, almost 2 people are being infected. So we're going back up to where we were, and we don't want to have another lockdown. I don't think we could survive another lockdown, our businesses, all of us. So I think, for me, it's a police department enforcement issue, and for us to decide what fine would be appropriate. And then again, discretion plays a role, as it always does with all enforcement at all times. Maybe sometimes it's just a question of a warning, but having active police involvement in this could change the game for us. It could just be that, having more active police presence, which we don't currently have. It may get us to where we need to go without issuing a fine against anyone. So what do people think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to collaborate with our police department to help in this process. Just putting everything aside, end of the day, people will listen to police officers if they communicate something. And so you have to work with the chief, top down on that strategy.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't want the police to be involved. I think we have enough trouble with relationships between the community and police. And I think if, maybe I'll rethink my initial comment that maybe we make the village a mask required village or a mask required zone, then there's just enough peer pressure for that to happen. So I think we're going to ask for trouble for police, because we got kids in the village, and what's the discretion? Are the police going to go up to a 60-year-old couple, but not go up to them, but go up to a bunch of kids who are there? I just think it opens up too many possible negative ramifications.
Mr. Davis, yeah. I'm sorry, I had to.
Welcome back. We're happy to have you back. Go ahead.
Yeah, my little wheel started going. I was like, never mind. So yeah, I've had some technical issues, but I do think we should make it mandatory in the village, because it is, and I'm sorry if obviously I missed some of what the discussion was. I think it's virtually impossible to stay socially distant in the village. And I think realistically, we won't be enforcing it when it's 7 o'clock in the morning and you're walking through the village because you're on your morning walk. And, there's common sense that can prevail here, right? So, but I do think as long as we continue the pedestrian mall, we have a police presence there that we might not otherwise have on foot. Not to have, I don't think it needs to be aggressive or anything, but I think a quick reminder, we can't keep going with just the ambassadors to enforce this, and we can't expect code enforcement to come out, at 9 o'clock in the evening to enforce. So I think we need to use the staff that we need to use. And I think it's a pandemic. I think right now it's more important that people be masked in places where there are a lot of people. And that's, not when they're sitting at a table at one of the restaurant's outdoor tables, but when they're walking through, they need to be masked. And I think the sooner we be a little aggressive about it with everybody, and I think most people would be grateful to know that we're taking this seriously and we're not letting people be afraid to go down to the village, because I know people who don't go because they're afraid of other people who aren't adhering to mask wearing. And I think that's that's bad for business, that's bad for public health. And I don't think we should be afraid. I think our police are nice enough and collegial enough to enforce this without it getting into the problems that we may be thinking about because of, you know, our hesitancy and our desire to have such a good community relationship. But I think we are building that, and I think we need to use our police to enforce this. So that's where I stand, and I have no idea where anybody else stands.
I think all of us have echoed what you said so well, Nancy. Thank you for your thoughts. So, Mr. Desiderio, how do we proceed here? Is this something that goes back to the OEM for a wider discussion and for input from our police chief? Or do we take a vote on a resolution right now?
Well, that's up to you. I mean, I think that you've discussed it and you have an idea of what you want to do. My suggestion would be that you set a policy and then you talk about, you refer it back to the police chief or whomever to make some recommendations to you with regard to the issue of enforcement, from what I'm hearing. I don't know if there was been an agreement on Maplewood Village only or not, but my suggestion would be that you do that by a motion, make your determination, and then we can. I am a little concerned of something Mr. Daff has said, and concerned in the sense that I am not as familiar with it. But Mr. Daff, if what you said is correct, that the governor's orders have said that only the police can enforce it, then we would be preempted in that area.
Well, the local police, not the governor's police, not the state police, but the local police, local law enforcement.
No, the local police. No, I understand that. But enforcement under his directive has been limited to the police departments of each respective municipality, correct?
Correct.
Well, then we can't have anybody else enforce it.
So Mr. Desiderio, if we pass a resolution, doesn't it become our directive as opposed to the governor's directive?
Well, it does, absolutely. But the issue of preemption is always the case. And if I have read his orders, they've always said that municipalities can't do this or can't do that. So if the issue of enforcement is there, now, you know, there's two kinds of enforcement. There's enforcement of telling people, listen, you should put it on because Maplewood has this resolution, and there's the enforcement of issuing summonses. Okay, so they're two different things. I mean, you know, it may very well be that a major sign blitz in the village, okay, establishing that this is a must-wear mask zone or something to that effect, might be effective. But if you're talking about summonses, then it's a different story. So I don't know what you want to do in terms of enforcement.
We could also do it in steps, correct? We could pass a resolution to make the village a mask required zone. Do the sign up, put signs out there, publicize it, and then see how it goes. And if it needs a further enforcement, we can tackle that.
That seems to me to make a lot of sense. Yes.
So,
but if there's an emergent issue here, we should move tonight, I think.
I agree. So I'm going to make a motion then. I move that we adopt Maplewood Village as a mandatory mask zone in the township of Maplewood. Do I have a second?
Second.
so
Just a point of clarification, is Maplewood Village, in terms of the boundaries, is that defined in our law such that we don't have to do that further in the resolution?
If we say the special improvement district, there is a definition.
Okay,
There is
I just want that makes sense.
Yeah, and our ordinances incorporate all the streets that are there. So, I mean,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I was done.
Okay, I was just going to say, does that include Donnell Road by the train station?
Yes.
It does.
Okay, that's what I thought, but the general public is not going to know what the special improvement district boundaries are, so we just need to make it clear.
Yeah, I think that's the signage. I think that, that's just my
Right.
suggestion.
Yeah,
That
I
signage
think
is put up.
yeah,
So-
I think that's a great idea.
So one more a point of discussion, and I'm okay with the village. But a lot of the complaints we've been getting is also in our parks. So why are we, I mean, to Mr. DeLuca's point earlier, and I understand, you know, kind of streamlining this. If we're having a lot of issues in our parks, why aren't we including the parks as well as the village? Like to put a little more teeth in what we're currently doing in the parks.
Well, the only thing I can say, Mayor, just from my personal perspective, as a guy who goes and watches his grandkids in the parks, you know, I don't think you can force the kids to wear masks while they're playing sports.
Yeah, it's not about them wearing masks while they're playing sports, you know, obviously, but we have talked about, you know, having a mask at all times and applying it when you can't apply social distancing and not using it when you're doing physical exercise, be it basketball, softball, tennis, cardio boxing, brawl, whatever it is. But we've said that when you're done with that physical activity, you're supposed to, you know, have a mask on you and apply it if you're not 6 feet apart. Unless I'm missing something in the staff report, right?
No, that is correct. And again, to that point, most people are getting used to it, right? It's a habit that has to be adopted. There are these outliers though that are really drawing concern to people because they're not following the standards. So I think this is just the one more push to just bring it home. And how you do that is up to you.
I feel like as somebody who walks every day in one of our parks or another, I feel like most people I encounter are either have a mask like on their neck or on their chin, like waiting to, or they avoid somebody else, or, you know, or they pull up their sweatshirt and cover their, you know, while you're walking past somebody. I know I usually have a kerchief around and just pull it up over my nose. I don't see it as problematic, frankly, in the parks as I do in the village. So I think most people, like Candace just said, are getting used to it and having a mask with them or using their own shirt or something when they can't social distance in the park. So I think it could get really muddy if we go at the park, and we might want to make it as clear as possible because the biggest problem right now is in the village. And I don't think we should muddy the waters.
So let's do this. So I'm okay with making it the village, but I would like to, if necessary, revisit this to bring the parks, because I will tell you that 90% of the complaints I'm getting is in the parks, not the village.
Yeah.
We got to mask the dogs in the park.
We got to put them on leashes too.
That's a whole other concern. So yeah, I would, you know, I would be in favor of the parks, but I'm also in favor of a progression here and starting off this way and see how we go. But the parks are a lot of the complaints. Early morning walking is different in the parks than it is later in the day, and certainly much different than the weekends.
Right.
And anything kind of goes because I'm in the parks a lot for exercise, and you know, people may have their chin guards, but that's not good enough. And if we're really concerned, if this is really an emergency as it is, the virus doesn't care where you are, whether it's the village or the parks. And it only takes one person to super spread this to another, to, you know, 5, 10 other people, as we know. So, you know.
How do we know that? Do we have an example on a national level that we could talk about?
Good one. And, you know, I would also say that, you know, people got really used to required masking when they were going to the county parks. Up in the reservation, for instance. In the beginning, the enforcement was sort of like really not there and anything went. But then the county got really strict about it. Certainly as our numbers went up and we became the county with the second highest numbers in the state, the county got very serious about required masking, and everybody got very used to the idea of wearing this thing properly while in the county parks. So this would be the same thing. So I know I made a motion, but it wasn't seconded it. So I'm going to take that motion away and I'm going to make another motion.
No,
Right?
wait, I seconded it.
Oh, did you? Did you?
There's
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So are you?
That's the part.
And the motion is the village, right?
The
Correct.
motion is the village.
The special improvement district.
Okay, can I just add something on the parks? And
Sure,
and
sure.
I think we would to Mr. Desiderio's point, based on, I don't know where this executive order has been superseded, but, based on an executive order that I saw from the governor about team sports, I think we would have a preemption issue in terms of, requiring people playing those team sports to wear masks while participating, because I think that's covered by an executive order. So I think we would have to sort of have some sort of carve out to make sure that our order wasn't preempted by overlapping with something that's already covered by an order.
Right, agreed. I think we would have to explicitly say that that's an exception while engaged in sports. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Should we take a roll call?
Yes.
Ms. Fritzen?
Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay.
And can I ask a question, Mr. Davis? Is
Sure.
that, or is the township committee in agreement that it'll be all the time? It's mandatory mask wearing in the special interest district of the village all the time?
Correct.
The answer is it's not limited, so yes, it's all the time.
Okay, and we will work with the special improvement district manager and with DPW, Ms. Adams, right, in terms of appropriate signage, and with you, Ms. Davenport, in terms of appropriate signage within the district. Is that right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think Ms. Viveros was handling getting all that signage before,
Okay,
so she should take on that responsibility.
Correct.
And I'll draft something, Mr. Daffis, and I will circulate it to you to make sure that it's captured the intent that you want, okay?
appreciate it, Mr. Desiderio. Thanks for your guidance as always. I think this takes us, unless you have anything else, Ms. Davenport, do you? Go ahead.
I just
Go
have
ahead.
one more thing. Mr. Adams brought up the social distancing ambassadors. So I just want to say that that program is terrific, and it's being modified so that we'll be using the special social distancing ambassadors at our community township-wide events.
Thank you. That's good to know. So are there any questions?
So I have a couple of questions for Ms. Davenport.
Go ahead, Mr. DeLuca.
On the flu vaccines, you said late October, early November. Is it make sense to wait that long, or should people look for other venues to get a flu vaccine?
Yes, if you can find other venues and you are a vulnerable population risk, then feel free to go and get it at your doctor's office or at a local pharmacy. They do have them currently. We as a township ordered 150 doses, and those will be given out to our township employees and our seniors. And then whatever we have left over, we'll do a drive-through flu clinic.
And is this a senior flu vaccine, or is it a general flu vaccine?
It is the general quadrivalent vaccine, not the senior high dose.
And the second thing is, you raised the question of Halloween, and then you said you're not sure what the township committee wants to do about it. The trick, whether we should not allow I assume you're saying whether we should allow trick or treating or not allow trick or treating. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that we've heard from some residents who said it would be nice to know and have guidance from the township as to what we can do as a town. So I know
Right.
we canceled the Halloween
So-
parade.
Well, not to interrupt you, Mr.
So
DeLuca,
this
but
is
I
the
know that the
meeting we should decide.
I mean, the governor said that, trick or treating is on, it's allowed, except, but he's provided some guidance about, not using bowls, finding another way to distribute the candy, in individual ways. He has advised against indoor gatherings of any kind whatsoever. But he has not put any executive order out that says there will be no trick or treating. And yes, our parade by the chamber is canceled, it's virtual. But I mean, it is theoretically, if a resident would like to trick or treat, it's in their right to trick or treat. And, it's really important that whoever is providing candy, sweets, or whatever it is to people who are trick or treating, that they really, practice caution and make sure that, the allocation of candy and is, I call it COVID clean in my home, but just make sure that you're very mindful because, hands everywhere. And the other thing too, which we got to cover is that mask. So, he communicated that, you're really wearing two masks this year. It's your Halloween mask and your COVID mask. That's the new Halloween. So, no, residents are, can trick or treat. But, obviously, we'll see how that works. I don't know if we're going to see we may see a downtick in those who turn their patio lights on. Obviously, if a patio light's off, traditionally, historically, that means that, we're not looking for trick or treaters. So, maybe this year we'll see less lights on. But trick or treating, according to the governor, is, as he communicated, is on. So,
but there are some towns that have decided not to allow it, and I think it would be. I agree with you. I just think it would be good for us to be affirmative, because they're asking us as local leaders, and I think we should say, it's we're not banning it. It's up to the family, just as you said, and here are the precautions.
Absolutely, because I think it's just like with the mask process, it's a complicated thing. So, yeah, we're not banning trick or treating. We are, and we are saying be very thoughtful and mindful about it. And if you could take a year off, great. If you want to do some pumpkin carving at home, with family, immediate family, that would be great. Scavenger hunts in your house. There's so many ways that you can celebrate. You can do a Zoom trick-or-treating contest with your friends. So there are many ways to do it, but I agree that we should not ban trick-or-treating, but we should say be very cautious in how you go about it. And indoor activities like parties and haunted houses and things like that. I know some people have done haunted houses traditionally. I would not be in favor of that.
So are we able to ban it if we want to as a municipality? Can we
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's what I'm hearing. So I don't feel like we have all weighed in on it yet. So,
Go ahead, Ms. Adams, go ahead.
Yeah, we can vote on it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what Mr. DeLuca was asking for. So I'm personally fine with it, I think, but I really think we need to put a statement out. If we have a majority vote on the township committee to allow it, we need to have a statement put out with all the parameters, because even what the governor said with the individual wrap stuff, like you're still touching it if you're wrapping it. Like, so I'm not quite sure I even understand what he's talking about. It almost seems to me that, like those opening their doors and giving out candy individually should be sure to be wearing masks and so on and so forth. So that's my thoughts on it. So.
Yeah, so I'm with you there too. I don't think we should ban trick-or-treating within our township, but I do agree that we should, through the health officer, put out guidance for families who are asking how to do this safely this year. And we can put that guidance out. We do have it. It's in the link that Ms. Davenport was just referring to in her report. Greg, do you want to weigh in here?
Sure. I mean, I think I'm in agreement with, it sounds like the majority, if not everyone, that we should allow it. Although with certainly more guidance than usual for health and safety reasons. I think the mayor's idea of porch lights on, that may be something that we may want to sort of communicate, because I do think this year you're going to have people, particularly older people or folks who are immunocompromised, who who probably, don't, aren't going to be comfortable opening the door for people. Probably both for them to not have their doorbell ringing all night and disappointing people, and also so people sort of know before they walk down the steps or up the steps or whatever to the house that, that's not house that's participating. So we may just want to sort of get that message out there, so that people, both for trick-or-treaters and for residents, because I think we are going to have a lot of people who are just not comfortable with people even coming up and ringing their doorbell or coming up to the house. But yeah, I mean, I think as long as like the mayor said, people are thoughtful about it and take the precautions they can, I think that it should go ahead. I don't think that we should ban it.
I do think we need to have some sort of comment also on traditional mischief night. Or maybe some sort of, I don't know, if it's not really a formal thing, but it happens. Maybe not so much this year, but also not to egg people's houses if their porch light's not on.
Yeah, I think we're going to leave a little free agency there, but I see what you're saying. Okay, so I'm going to put forth a motion here. I'm going to move that Halloween be allowed to be celebrated within the township of Maplewood.
Mr. Daffis, if I may just interrupt you, as opposed to saying it that way, I think we're better served that we are not going to ban it.
Okay, great.
I don't want there to think that we're sanctioning it. Okay, and I think there's when you say it from the positive aspect, I think it almost sounds like that. So my suggestion is just that the township of Maplewood is not going to ban trick-or-treating activities. That would be my suggestion, sir.
Okay, so I move that the township, thank you, Mr. Desidero. I agree with you. I appreciate your guidance. So I move that the Maplewood Township not ban Halloween trick-or-treating this year, subject to the public health guidelines put forth through our public health office and through the mayor's communications. Do I have
Second?
Okay. Roll call, Ms. Fritzen?
Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lundberg,
Yes.
Mayor McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And this brings us to the public comment portion of tonight's Board of Health meeting, which I was hoping was going to be a little bit shorter this year, this month, but it was not because of our discussion item. Do we have members of the public, Glenn, who are interested in asking any questions?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, but before we go to that, I had one comment I wanted to make to Ms. Davenport.
Sure. I apologize.
Okay, no, that's not a problem. So I was going to do this potentially for my elected official, but I wanted to just convey to everyone out there who may be listening, we may have a bigger crowd now than then, and while Ms. Davenport is with us, that after putting it off for a while, I went for my COVID test at the pool parking lot last Friday. The biggest thing I was concerned about was not that I would be positive or whatever, just that it would be painful, that it would take a long time, that it would be inconvenient. From the time I left my car till the time I got back in the car was 11 minutes. I had both tests and I got the results today by phone, negative on both tests, fortunately. So it took 2 business days and I got the call, and like I said, it was just barely over 10 minutes to get both tests done. So I would really encourage people, if you haven't been tested yet, go right over to the pool parking lot between 8 and 4 p.m. And the people over there are very nice. The procedure was not painful at all. And like I said, it was very quick. It was very easy. And the results also, are prompt. So, from someone who was delaying, I'll say to others out there who may be putting it off, really don't put it off. They're there through the end of this month, as Ms. Davenport reported. They do a really nice job, and it will not be an inconvenience or painful. So stop putting it off and go get tested.
Thank you, Mr. Lundberg.
That's great, Mr. Lundberg. Thank you. I echo what you said. I too recently was tested again. my 9th test, I think it was at this point, as we started. And I'm happy to report that I'm negative diagnostic and antibodies. And it's a very simple procedure, and the people are very nice over there. So please take advantage of it. They're going to be there throughout the month of October. Are there
But
any?
you do have to call, because they
No.
didn't call me.
No.
Well, I did. It was a week before I had to call.
Yeah.
Oh, I got tested Friday and I got the call today.
Yeah, I got
So-
tested the Friday before and I called last Friday.
Okay.
So just so people know that if you don't hear, it doesn't mean it's bad news. Just give them a call at the number that Candace gave out.
Right. In fact, they did say that they do call the people who test positive right away. So, we want people to know that you will, if you test positive, you're going to receive a call right away.
Well, and also if someone tests positive and they're a Maplewood resident, someone from Ms. Davenport's office is going to reach out to them too, right?
Yep. For contact tracing. That's right.
Right.
So are there any more comments or questions of our health officer from my colleagues?
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lembrick. And that truly brings us to public comment. Are there any public comments or questions, Mr.
You have one.
We do have one, yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Go ahead. Joan, you're on. Just state your name and address for the record.
Joan Crystal, 4 Quarter Avenue, Maplewood. First of all, I would like to thank the Board of Health for voting to have masks required in the village. I think that's a great start. I don't think it goes far enough. I do a lot of walking on local streets, and more often than not, I am encountering people who do not have face coverings with them, let alone wearing them. I find that going around a corner, people will be running and they will suddenly see that there is somebody wearing a mask right in front of them. They are not wearing a mask. And they get a little bit flustered, but it doesn't help the person who is trying to stay safe. I'm also wondering why Maplewood Avenue area, but not Springfield Avenue area, because there is a problem on Springfield Avenue as well with people not wearing face coverings. And I think if we're going to focus on one part of town, we should also focus on the other major commercial area in town. Regarding Halloween, I'd like to make a suggestion, and that is that some form of signal be put out indicating that a house is participating with trick-or-treating. That might reduce the number of people who ring seniors' doorbells or doorbells of other people who don't want to participate, and then become disappointed when nobody comes to the door.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Ms. Crystal. Those were really good comments. I like that last suggestion. We'll take you up on that as part of our guidance and our communications to the town. Any other public comment?
Nope, seeing none.
Okay, with that, I move to adjourn this month's Board of Health meeting.
Second.
Scheduled to meet again on November 4th, right after Election Day. God help us. Roll call, Ms. Fritz.
Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lundberg,
Yes.
Mayor McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mayor. The show is back in your court.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis, and thank you as well, Ms. Davenport. We'll now move on to agenda item number 10. We have an ordinance on introduction.
8-20,
Yeah, sorry.
it's an ordinance to amend chapter 271 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Zoning and Development Regulations. This ordinance will allow the occupancy of an accessory dwelling unit as herein defined in certain residential areas within the township.
Mayor,
I was muted, sorry about that. May I get a motion, Mr. Daffis?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on October 20th, 2020.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Dakis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to reports from departments. I don't think we received any reports in this particular meeting, so we'll move on quickly to our administrative reports, and we'll start with our Township Administrator, Ms. Viveros.
Mayor, I do not have a report tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Viveros? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Viveros. We'll now move on to our Township Attorney, Mr. Desiderio. Mr. Desiderio.
Mayor, I have no report this evening.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Desiderio? Hearing none, we'll move on to our Township Clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Mayor, I have a report.
Please proceed.
The first thing I'm going to cover is some election information. And we did put out a blast today about voter registration deadline. Is exactly next Tuesday, October 13th. The office of the Township Clerk will be open that day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Straight through for the purpose of voter registration. I want to report that on Thursday morning, Mr. DeLuca, the OEM coordinator, will be conducting an update on our election plans for election day here within the township. So critical, very involved departments have been invited. And again, that's 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, and each member of the township committee has been notified of the meeting, and it's an in-person with masks and social distancing right in the township committee room. So everybody knows that the Maplewood ballots have gone out. One thing I did want to bring up was, again, the sheets that we have prepared from the clerk's office about general election information have been very well received by the public, and also our election COVID-19 response sheet, again, very well received. My goal was to keep it as simple as possible, not so wordy, and more so with symbols and signs, and I think that's been helpful to the residents of the township. Also, there's another sheet that we got from the county clerk's website that we've been utilizing with people that have been calling, because we've been getting a lot of calls from people who have made small or just errors in their ballot. If they didn't seal it right, they didn't have the barcode showing. So anyway, we have these printed out. We have also going to put them up on our website. It's a reason for a request for another ballot. It gives you three things to check off. I have not received my first ballot. I mistakenly threw out or misplaced my ballot. And I accidentally made a mistake on my ballot, and so I'm requesting a second ballot. You simply take that form and scan and email it into the county clerk's office or fax it. And we've been helping a lot of people, just directing them on what they do with it once they've completed it. So those are the three things I want to report on right now for elections. If you have any questions, we're making great progress. In the township are 4 physical polling locations. Again, it's a vote by mail election, but our 4 physical locations are Clinton School, Maplewood Municipal Building, Maplewood Community Center, and the Woodland. And in addition to that, most Maplewoodians already know that we have our own Maplewood designated ballot box at 1618 Springfield Avenue, right in front of the Maplewood Police and Court Building. So I have other topics to go over. I don't know if the Township Committee has any questions before we leave elections.
I have one.
Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Fritzen, and I apologize if I've missed this information before one way or the other, but will we get any sort of updates or reports from the county about how many ballots from Maplewood they've received, whether through our box or generally sort of in the way we get updates on the census of how many people have returned it? You know, is the county sort of tracking by municipality how many ballots come in for turnout so that we can get a sense of our turnout as time goes by, or is that something we won't find out until post-election?
Mr. Lindbergh, I haven't heard them make any pledge to release any kind of numbers like that.
Okay.
So Mr. Lindbergh and Ms. Fritzen, I can answer it at the county level. It was communicated this morning on a call that there have been a total of 48,000 ballots already put into the boxes across the county, and 24,000 mailed in, for a total of 72,000 ballots already from Essex County that have been sent to the clerk's office. So that was part of my report.
No disrespect, Mayor. I will have the stats for the next call.
Perfect.
Because we are tracking. This is Keisha Burnett. I'm on it, and I will get back to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
I love it, Ms. Burnett. Awesome. Yeah, I thought it was 72,000. When I heard this morning, I thought that was pretty impressive so far.
Yeah, I will say this: Essex County, not just because I work for Essex, we're knocking it out the box.
Good.
We are.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But we are, but I'll come back with the stats. But yes, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, should I go on?
Please, Ms. Fritzen.
So my other report item is that we have begun inspections anyway, and have had 2 applications for outdoor cafe heating unit devices. We don't have any approvals yet, but again, we've had 2 applications. One will be inspected, I would guess, tomorrow. So there's progress being made there. Since our last meeting, and again, after conversation with Ms. Adams, we did send out a letter and the ordinances to every restaurant and convenience store in the township regarding the 2 ordinances concerning straws and plastics. And October's a month that we normally send out to board and committee members whose terms expire at the end of the year to see what their interest is in continuing. And we will get them out this month, of course. And also communication to the chairs of each board and committee as to what their participation level is, even with those that do not expire at the end of this year. And we continue to license outdoor cafes and the businesses in the parks. We have at least 1 or 2 additional dates or new businesses every week. And the sidewalk sales retail has definitely gone down. But again, the businesses are happy to utilize the outlets that the Township Committee has provided to them. So I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Are there any questions from any additional questions from Ms. Fritzen? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll now move on to agenda item number 13, reports from elected officials. We will first hear from Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 4 items. The first, the Public Safety Committee will be meeting next Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. That will be a virtual meeting on Zoom, as we've been doing now for the past several months. And that meeting at the Public Safety Committee will include information and a discussion on the auxiliary police, which I know has been a topic that has been of considerable interest to many residents in our community. Number 2, the Community Board on Police is meeting tomorrow night, also at 7:30 and also via Zoom. The major focus of tomorrow night's meeting will be a presentation on the intersection of social work and policing, including some models that have been used to have, social workers either working with police or doing work that is has been commonly done by police. And I'm also hoping that, following that presentation, that we can come back at our next meeting on October 20th and have a more thorough discussion of how we might want to move forward on that front, including consideration of the invitation from South Orange to join with them in a shared service on that front. And hopefully we can receive more information at that point for our consideration. My third item is from the Recreation Advisory Committee. The Recreation Advisory Committee is going to be hosting its first public meeting on Maple Crest Park improvements. That will be on Saturday, October 17th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. There are flyers going around on that, and if people want the link, they can also call the Recreation Department to receive the link for that Zoom meeting. There is also hope to do a second meeting, date to be determined. That likely would not be a weekend. The thought was to do one on a weekday and one on a weekend. And hopefully we'll be at a point where we can have public participation in person, but at least for now, the only option for the meeting on the 17th is via Zoom. My last item is just to remind everyone, we heard Ms. Fritzen talk about some election issues. Remember to vote, 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 and remember to vote on both sides of the ballot. There's important ballot questions and Board of Education election on the back of the ballot. So don't just vote for president and senator and Mr. Daffis and Mr. DeLuca and call it a day. Please turn over your ballot and vote on those questions, and also for the members of our Board of Education, and vote now and have it done so that you can turn your attention to helping others to vote and encouraging everyone else to get out the vote. Mr. Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick.
I have a question.
Yes, a question for Mr. Limbrick.
Yes, I do. So can we get, and maybe it's for the administration, can we get the link for that Zoom meeting for Recreation Advisory on what to happen with the skate park or tennis courts or whatever in Maple Crest Park that we're talking about, more widely distributed so that proactively so that people can get it or put it on our website?
Yes, I know that it's been sent to, I believe, the clerk's office for public notice. But yeah, I think whether it be the Recreation Department or the Administration Department or the clerk's office, I agree that the flyer is sort of circulating on social media and by email, but we should have that available on the website and every other way we can make it available so that people know about it. And again, that's a week from this Saturday, October 17th.
Ms. Adams, Mr. Limbrick, just to answer your question, that'll be put out through the website and that'll be posted also with the link.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. And good segue, Ms. Adams. You have the floor.
Sure. I wanted to let everyone know that the State Review Board of Historic Places unanimously passed the Maplewood Village Historic nomination. That was worked so hard on by Susan Newberry and Ginny Kirshen and many people on the Historic Preservation Commission, but those two in particular have been working on it for several years, I believe. And I apologize if I'm leaving anyone out. That's why I don't usually like to name specific people. But that's a good thing. We had a couple of public meetings with regard to that and meetings with the property owners and the stakeholders in Maplewood Village. It does not prohibit property owners there from doing what they want to do with their buildings. It's mostly an honorarium and the HPC will discuss with the Village Alliance, no doubt, signage and things like that, the historic plaques that most people are very familiar with. I also want to say that the Maplewood Memorial Park Conservancy, even during COVID, has been moving forward with some projects. They've been very attentive to the park. They did bird watching day on a Saturday, I think it was last Saturday, and also are working on the Vietnam Memorial, which is on the southwest or southeast corner of the park, right near the intersection of Baker and Valley. And that was kind of under impressive, if that's a word. They're redoing that with a generous donation of a couple $1,000s from the local VFW. So that'll start being done with volunteer labor starting tomorrow morning and in conjunction with DPW. So you should notice some vast improvement over by the Vietnam Memorial. So that's all I have, other than to echo Mr. Lembrecht and to encourage people to vote early. I'd say often, but that just kind of rolls off. But I know that's not what we're supposed to do. We don't want to give Mr. Trump any more leverage on his fantasy of fraudulent voting. I'm trying to be nice. It's very hard for me to use polite words when I refer to him. So just vote, go out and vote. And I'm waiting for a certain mask that says vote before we put our ballots into that box over by the police station. So cool. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And any questions for Ms. Adams? Hearing none. Thank you again, Ms. Adams. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of my items were already covered, so that should make everyone happy that I won't speak as long as I tend to do sometimes. Mr. Lembrecht already covered my report with respect to the Community Board on Police's meeting tomorrow night and their presentation in particular. Ms. Adams covered the historic designation of Maplewood Village. I do want to add on a separate note with respect to Maplewood Village. This is very, very early in the stages. Very, very early in the stages, but we are moving forward with one of the recommendations from the Maplewood Village Visioning Plan, which included, I'm sure all of us will agree, much needed beautification and improvements in the Village Center lot, the lot behind Arturo's. Particularly with respect to, the trash dumpsters out there and beautifying back there, and possibly even improving circulation and even maybe parking. We've engaged one of our, guided and trusted consultants that we work with in similar projects in town. And we are in the very, very early stages of reaching out to businesses to understand better their usage back there of the parking, of the loading zones, of the traffic, their needs, their concerns, as we collectively move forward towards some beautification and improvements. I want to report that the SOMA Two Towns for All Ages age-friendly initiative moves forward. I'm excited to announce that the management committee did interview several candidates for Kathy Rowe's counterpart. As you all recall, we are moving forward with a 2-person shared service, Kathy Rowe reporting to South Orange and someone reporting to Maplewood, both of them working together, still a shared service. We still have grata funding for that through the end of next year, and we'll have to revisit how we will carry this forward and how it would look like beyond the grata funding. We interviewed several candidates. We agreed upon on a finalist, and Ms. Vivero's office is moving forward with that person soon. Wi-Fi installation in the Seth Boyden area. I previously reported some early challenges, both technical and procedural in terms of installations. The participatory budget committee did meet a few weeks ago, about a month ago, to it was an emergency meeting to, figure out what was going on and to sort of move forward and try to speed up installations. And I'm happy to report that we agreed to about 3 to 4 installations per week. And we are moving in that regard. We already have 4 installations, I believe, and we're going to convene again towards the end of this month to reassess the situation before we move forward with possibly an expanded installation in terms of hot zones, before we move forward with the installation of a second reception antenna or pole. All of that equipment, of course, we already have and we've budgeted for in 2020. And I will continue reporting on the success of that. It is laborious. It's very, very hard to reach out to people, many of whom are renters who move, and many of whom are afraid to receive anyone during COVID at their doorstep for free internet or otherwise. And that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Are there any questions for Mr. Daffis? Hearing none, we'll move on. Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 4 quick things from the arts and cultural arena. Tuesday, the 13th, October 13th, the theater project, we're working with the theater project to zoom out a 2-act performance called Black Lives, Blue Lives. It's on the issues of race and policing. And you can go on our arts and culture website and get the information and register to participate. I want to give you an update on our Maplewood Black Lives Matter poetry project. We are moving forward. We have about 30 panels of poetry that we'll be putting up around town. We have worked with our DPW and the 2 special improvement districts to identify locations. With the DPW, we're looking at public spaces. So we think we're going to have everything up by the end of the month. So that's our goal, or at least begin to have things up at the end of the month. Third, our Black History Month planning meeting is next Wednesday at 3 p.m. We're starting earlier this year because who knows what the situation will be with COVID in 2021. And right now we're limited to using the Woodland. So we want to make sure that people are scheduling activity and anything that can be done outside, although it is in February, that we would consider that. And lastly, our engineers, I brought the engineers and our traffic consultant to meet with the pastor of Prospect Presbyterian Church last week to talk about our traffic calming on Prospect Street. He was very supportive of our activities there. We're going to be moving the crosswalk there at the corner of the Crescent to be away from where it is now, to move it more towards the corner, which will help. We heard from our steering committee members, one of which is on the call tonight, about the challenge of the crossing guard to handle both of those crossing areas there. So we're going to be doing some of that and rearranging the parking there. So that was a very productive meeting, and our consultant is moving forward with the plans, and hopefully if not the next meeting, in the early meeting in November, we'll have at least the authorization to go out to bid, and we'll get this we'll get the bids back and get this work done hopefully before the end of the year. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Do we have any questions for Mr. DeLuca? Hearing none, thank you. So I'm dwindled down to just only a few items, which is fine. First and foremost, tomorrow, over at Seth Boyden, the South Mountain YMCA is doing their food distribution, the meat and dairy. It was a big event, a little bit delayed last week, but it's continuing. It begins at noon over at Seth Boyden Elementary, 274 Boyden Avenue. So come out, there's some good food and some opportunities. This past Thursday, we held the Essex County food distribution at our pool, and over 400 boxes were given away, and people have started lining up at like 7:30. I got there at 7:45. People were lined up, and we were done by 10:30. And it was humbling just to see the amount of people in need of all different backgrounds. It was humbling. So anyway, there's food out there. We know we are in a pandemic, so please don't be bashful. Take advantage of these opportunities. Also, the U.S. Census is still alive. So, we're at 78.2%. We have a few more weeks to go. So I'll send out a communication sometime later on this week about where we need to go in terms of various areas of town, but it's alive. This is such a critical thing. I mean, this decision is going to impact, where we are financially for the next decade in terms of funding, and also who will represent you in DC. So don't forget that. Next Tuesday night, we'll be having our planning board meeting. It's going to be, one of the topics will be development on Irvington Avenue, as well as Parker Avenue. I had a conversation with several residents a couple of Fridays ago, regarding their thoughts and ideas there. And so the planning board is open. It's a publicly noticed meeting. So if you're interested in seeing what's happening with development in our community, please come there as well. And finally, it is October, and as discussed, we have an ordinance on styrofoam, and it is now live and active, even in a COVID situation. So we'll be working closely with our code enforcement team, our SIDS, and our businesses to make sure that they start the process of complying with this very important thing. Even under COVID, our environment still has to be taken care of. And so let's be mindful and thoughtful of that. And finally, last but not least, as we've all been a theme tonight, I'm wearing it. This is what you got to do. It's so important. It's so important for every single one of us in our community. And, in my opinion, I think we should have the biggest turnout in the history of this town. Why? Because the ballot is coming to you. So, it's a great opportunity to just take a few minutes and simply fill out, your ballot, because your ballot, is your voice. And I was reminded this weekend when I was in Irvington at the Black Lives Matter event about so many, how many Black people and white people and people of color in general who got their heads crushed in blood and shed blood and died. So I have the right to simply take 5 minutes to fill out a ballot and put it in a mailbox. So that is my report. Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to our discussion items. We have 3 discussion items this evening. Our first discussion item is the chicken ordinance. Mr. Desiderio, you have the floor.
Mayor, you caught me somewhat off guard. This is really Ms. Davenport who really put this forward. What I did was just circulate it. It's my understanding that the proposed changes that are reflected have been discussed and approved at one of the at the code meeting, Miss Adams. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so, but that's Mr. Daffis' committee.
I'm sorry, Mr. Daffis.
No worries. Yes, and that's correct, Mr. Desiderio. Thank you.
So if the governing body is agreeable, then I'll just put it into final form and put it on for introduction. I mean, the thrust of it is they're raising the application fee $5. She wants the registration to coincide with year end. She's given us an appeal process where people can appeal to the administrator. And basically, we are taking, in the earlier ordinance, we had it broken down by districts. We've kind of done away with that. And we are putting in a provision with regard to making sure that there are no rats in the area before she licenses the approval, or the health department licenses the approval. So those were the proposed changes that I believe were improved. And if it's okay with everyone, we'll put it on for introduction at the next meeting.
Sounds good. Everybody okay?
Works for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Move on to our
Okay.
second agenda discussion item, which is a recommendation from our Finance Committee. Mr. DeLuca?
Thank you, Mayor. I sent down a report from the Finance Committee, and we did look at this issue of the jitney, and I'll just move this that the township would provide a 75% credit on the 2021 jitney passes to those who purchased a 2020 jitney pass.
Can I ask a question on that, Mr. Mayor?
Please, Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you. And the question is one that I'm anticipating coming from people who paid for parking passes this year, and I think I know the answer. But who are going to say, well, I bought a parking pass, I really didn't use it this year, and I presume the answer to that is why the jitney service would get a discount, but parking would not, is that we actually have not been offering the jitney service. So whereas the parking spots were still there for people who needed them, the jitney service, whether people needed it or not, we stopped providing. Would that be the distinction and the thought behind this discount?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I just
Yes.
wanted to confirm that. So yeah, I would support this.
But we need a second for it to be supported.
Second.
I'll second it then, Mr. DeLuca.
Any further discussion?
Not
Hearing
on, not on this, no.
Hope not. Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes,
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes,
Lundberg,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Our third and final discussion evening.
oh wait, I had a question on the finance report though.
Oh,
So it's just about the lack of revenue from the sewer fees. I think you said there are like 2,500 sewer accounts that have not paid. Is that normal? Is that like?
yes.
That's
yes.
normal for a year? Okay. That's what I wanted to know because of COVID.
no, it's people, the mailing is separate, so people.
No, yeah, no, I know. I just didn't, and I know that there is people who miss that or don't understand it or put it off because it makes them upset. But I just wanted to know if that was about a normal rate.
No, they think their bank is paying for it as like similar to their mortgage.
Right.
So when they get the second one, then they generally call and then we have the conversation. So
Okay. But it's typical for that many to be.
it may be a little bit higher, but it's typical. We get these every year.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Our third discussion item tonight is regarding our Office of Emergency Management. Mr. DeLuca.
Yes, thank you. We have two resolutions that are on the consent agenda. Just to let you know, we had an allocation of $472,000 in CARES money. This is the federal money that was passed by Congress. We did apply, and we've been then you get it reimbursed. We did make a case to the county that we were going to have additional expenditures before the end of the year. So the county has allocated an additional $250,000 to Maplewood. So that brings us over almost $900,000 in CARES money. But we need to approve the 250,000 memorandum of understanding. So I would move that so that we can draw down those dollars.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
No, great.
Perfect.
Who would vote no on this?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Now the question
Why
is,
isn't it 300,000?
We need to call the roll.
call the roll, exactly. So Ms. Fritzen, please.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Dakis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
And so on the consent agenda, we have the 250,000 as a new source of revenue. We also received a $10,000 grant for emergency management, performance grant. And this is for us to be better emergency management people. The one good thing you'll all be happy to know that I have to go as the coordinator to 24 hours of continuing emergency management education. So that's for $10,000. So that's my value. So that we also have a resolution modifying our budget to accept this $10,000 grant. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. All right, we will now move on to our consent agenda. May I get a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt every item on the consent agenda.
May I get a second?
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Dakis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're now on agenda item number 16, public comment on any subject matter. Glenn, do we have anyone who wants to speak to the TC?
I'll do a last call. If there's anyone, members of the public who would like to speak, just use the raise hand function. If not, seeing no one, back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, we'll now close the public comment for any subject matter, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I move we adjourn.
Awesome. All in favor?
Yay.
Aye.
Awesome. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Aye.